Welcome everyone to our the second part of our change management workshop series with Rnold Smith. Thanks to those of you who didn't come to the first one and are here for this one, and welcome back those of you who came to part one and are now back for part two. Those who attended last week, I think, received value out of the workshop. I certainly did. I learned lots of things from Rnold. I think things that really stood out for me was how change is analogous to pain, fear and pain. I thought that was pretty interesting. And then I learned some new strategies, just clarity, like Rnold was talking about making the unknown known and being very clear about what success looks like and keep telling it over and over again so that people are reminded of that change. Anyways, I'm pretty excited to hear about the two remaining strategies for change from Rnold today. So maybe Rnold, you can start by introducing yourself again.
Yes, I will. Hold on a second. Let me just share my screen, share the slideshow. This is who we are. I'm going to go back. Part two. Um, Sorry, Karen, say what you said again, because am I introducing myself? Am I introducing you? Am I going housekeeping?
Um, Let me review housekeeping with everyone, and then we'll move on to the next slide, which is introduction of yourself, because I think everybody already knows me.
Yes,
So
hopefully.
just some simple housekeeping rules. Turn off your microphones. Unless you would like to ask a question, feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question or type it in the chat box at any time. We will also reserve some time at the very end for some Q&A, but you're also welcome to ask questions throughout the presentation. And this presentation will be recorded and you all will receive a recording after today's webinar.
Great. Housekeeping done. Nice cleaning. Okay, so I'm Rnold. I'm just going to talk about, I don't love talking about myself, but ultimately, as a business consultant and coach, my goal is to help people and leaders and teams create the best possible experience of working and life. My focus of my work is really behavior change. Ultimately, there's no new results without behavior change. And I focus on, culture transformation, inspirational leadership, personal evolution. Oftentimes, I'm brought in for mediation or conflict resolution. I have had I'm still not sure what I want to do. Well, that's not true. I know what I want to do when I grow up, but for a long time, I did a bunch of different roles. So I've worked in a lot of different industries. And what that enables me to do is to bring best practices from different industries to other industries, but also to really relate to a wide cross section of people. I've been doing this work for about 20 years. I'm certified as a workplace skills practitioner through the Government of Canada, positive intelligence coach through Positive Intelligence. And one of the big problems I saw in doing this work, corporate training, coaching, was that it's really easy to provide amazing information. But when you give that information, it's much harder then to have people implement that. And so a large part of my focus is not just giving people strategies and insights, but actually supporting them so that they change their behavior and get new results. And so I spent some time and a whack of money building my own behavior change app. And it's called the Connection app, which is why you'll see my email is Rnold at the Connection app. And that really gave me a lot of insight into how does it work, and a lot of case studies working with people, and how do you support people to change using technology. So the agenda today is, so I'm just going to shift my view here so I'm not seeing too many people. Ultimately, we're going to talk about change management goals, the goal for today, and understanding why people struggle with change, and at an advanced level. And then two really specific strategies to help people change when they just have struggled for a long time. And each individual, you yourself, will have probably things in your life where you've had goals that you've achieved to various levels, and maybe even behaviors that you've really struggled to implement. And I had the exact same thing. And it really, I got really curious, like, why am I so passionate about making this change? I'm so committed to it, and yet somehow something keeps getting in the way. And it wasn't clear to me what that was. And so I spent a lot of time and effort to really figure that out. And so the focus of this workshop is really that piece. When everything's aligned, you say you want to, you get the support you need, and you still struggle to change. What do you do then? So hopefully this will help you in your life and in your business. Um, and this workshop is really designed to be interactive. So hopefully when I ask a question or I say, can you type something in the chat, you'll actually do that because that would make it more meaningful and valuable for everybody. Take a sip of water here. And then at the end, hopefully we're going to go through all 5 strategies and just have a discussion, answer questions, and just talk about change in general. Now, before we get into it, there's a way I'd like you to participate, and I call it the fast learning model. The first step is to, well, I call it, I stole it from a fellow named Jim Quick. The first step is to forget what you know, come with the beginner's mind. And ultimately, I may be talking about concepts where you go, oh yeah, I read all about that, or I know that. And if you do that in your mind, you'll stop yourself from seeing what else might be there. So I invite you as the Zen Buddhists say, come with a beginner's mind and try and find the edge of your knowledge. Like, what else can you discover? Like, you might be 90% there. Can you get to 95% today? So the more you do that, the more value you'll get. Also, actively apply what I'm talking about to your own experience of life. When it's a theoretical concept, it might feel good, it might be really interesting, but the more you apply it to your life, the more value you'll get. So it could be at home or at work or really in any area of your life. But the more you can apply it or find an example where you can use what I'm talking about, the better the more valuable this time will be for you. As much as possible, be in a state of listening. So obviously, if you're distracted and doing other things, you'll get less value. If you can be attentive and focused for the time we're together, then that'll maximize your value. And if you commit to teaching somebody something about what you learned today, like Karen talked about at the beginning, how this is what you got from the last workshop, it helps to clarify the concepts for yourself. And it helps to really embed that, not just for a little while, but it helps to keep the learning for an extended period of time. Most of the time, people only actually keep or the learning for like 10%. So the more you do these things, the more of what is talked about today you'll actually get to keep. Any questions about that so far? Great. Okay, so I say that the change management goal for either personal behavior change or organizational is to actually get people to love the change as quickly as possible. Not just do the change, but actually love the change. If you're staying in a place where this change is painful, then your experience of life isn't that great. And it will always be a struggle. So if you can shift people from being in that painful state of like, oh, I'm struggling to change, to I love what we're doing, the change that you desire is going to be way more effective, and people will like you a lot better. And you'll be better at it too. So today's goal, the goal at the end of this session, what I want you to have is really understand what to do when people seem stuck. And by people, that also means yourself. So if you're looking at a change in your behavior or a goal you want to achieve that you haven't achieved, then hopefully what will happen by the end of today is you'll have some clear understanding of what to do in those circumstances. And because this is interactive, if you have a page in your computer, if you're on a computer or a notepad to write on, it would make it more meaningful because then as I ask you the questions, you can write them down and then you have something to keep afterwards. Karen, I'm just curious, last time, I don't know, did you take notes or did you or Jermaine or Casey take notes last time? Did
I
you
did take
find that
notes.
valuable? Like, was that like a resource for you at the end?
Because I'm able to go back to my notes and remind myself of the things that I learned, because if I didn't do that a few days later, I would have forgotten everything.
Great. So, thank you for that. I don't know if I paid her to say that, but I think that was what I was hoping she would say. So thank you. Um, okay, so the next part is this is ultimately the issue. It's rare that people, and I have you, so the more you can apply it to yourself, the more you'll understand it. It's really easy to look at others and go, why don't they change? Because everybody struggles with different things. But when you can find your own struggle, it's way easier to have the compassion for others. Some people are really high achievers, and so they'll jump into change and they'll do whatever it takes to make it happen. But if you ask them to, not work as much, that's when they go, oh, that's really hard. I really struggle with that. And so they can see, oh yeah, but now what else are you neglecting? You're neglecting your health, you're neglecting your family, which is often what will happen with high achievers, and that lead to burnout. So it may look on the outside that behavior is what you want to do because they achieve their goals. But everybody has their strengths and their weaknesses. So we want to kind of get to a place where we see the change we want to have, and then we understand how to make that happen. So you say you want to change and then don't. First of all, can I just get a show of hands? Does anybody at all relate to this? Am I talking to just the group of people that actually know we have no problem with changing our behavior, we achieve all our goals? Because I just want to check and see if I'm just wrong or off base here. Okay, thank you, Dolores. Very courageous, putting hand up there. And I see Casey with his actual hand and not the digital hand. Um, okay, so again, Danielle, thank you very much. Okay, good. So I am speaking to people who also potentially have this problem. I think it's a universal problem, but I just wanted to check in case because I haven't actually spoken to everybody on the planet yet. Now, one of the things that is so I already talked about in your notebook, the more that you can target, so rather just generally target a specific change. So think about something that you really want to have happen in your life that you've struggled with for a long time. And you might still be pretty good at it, right? But we just kind of want to find the edge. Okay, so I'm better at this, but I still struggle with it. And we just want to kind of be in that place because in the inquiry, in the investigation of that, right at that edge, that's where there's going to be the information. If it's theoretical, this will be nice information, but it won't be as valuable. I want to talk a bit about resignation. Now, my TED talk is called Unlocking Unpredictable Results. And no, not actual TEDx, not quite on that stage yet, one day. But resignation is the unresisting acceptance of a probable future. So the future is unwritten. But what our brains do is they say, well, I've been this way for 30 years, 10 years, 20 years. So in the future, I'm going to be that way. This is how I am. This is how it is. Those two sentences are the most damaging limiting beliefs. This is how I am. This is how they are. This is how it is. That's a sign of resignation. And when you're resigned, you're no longer resisting that probable future. There's no doubt that our brains can predict behavior and people will often live up to that prediction. Like that's just the way, like certainly we have habits and we have tendencies. I'm not denying that. And the future's unwritten. Someone can be shy and in this moment choose to be bold or courageous. And if they were being bold and courageous to someone they haven't met, in that moment, that person would be bold and courageous, despite being shy for their entire lives. So change is possible in this moment, but there's something to overcome, as we all know since we're here talking about change. I mentioned finding the edge. There's always a new level, especially when we want to have a bigger goal or level up our lives or create a different result. We're going to often encounter the same problem, but in a different way. And we might be able to peel off a layer. So, as much as possible, find that edge. Okay. Before we go into the kind of advanced strategies, if you will, I want to just review what we talked about last week. And this will be a fairly quick review. But ultimately, the very first thing is when helping others to change, we need to tell the whole story. So you need to create the future for yourself and for others in a way that you're inspired to make it happen. So if we're exercising and the future we're imagining is the pain of the exercise, it's much more difficult to actually do that exercise. When you're imagining the future of you being healthy, fit, flexible, strong, pain-free, and you have that in your mind, then the behavior becomes easier. Now, what's automatically there for people by default is the prediction of pain. And that isn't, so it's not something that you do once. It's something that you have to do over and over again. You wake up tomorrow and you have this vision yesterday of like you being healthy, strong, and pain-free. And then it comes to exercise. Immediately what's there is that, oh, that's going to be hard. At least that's my experience every morning when I go to work out. And so it requires like to create that again. And as a leader, one of your most important jobs is to interrupt a person's default vision of the future, which is predicting pain and struggle. Now, some people are better at that than others. But when you encounter something you're afraid of, or when you encounter something that you'll predict struggle. And so being able to speak about a future that people care about is really important. And it's not, the company is going to make more money. The leaders are going to make better decisions. That's not the future that people care about. It's going to make teamwork easier. It's going to have less duplication. Like it has to be something in the day to day. Habits are not formed through repetition. They're formed when you have a craving for a reward. So if you have a negative association with the change, and for a personal change, it's often, I'm not doing enough. I should have done more. I only did it this much. How's your change going? Oh, I don't know. Like it's right there. It's never enough. How did work go today? It's never enough. And so it's very hard to get into the flow state or get into a habit because you've got this negative association with change. Like I'm making progress is positive. And the more that people can feel like I'm making progress instead of I'm not doing enough, the more likely the change will stick and the faster it will become an automatic habit. So create a positive association with change. And the third strategy is it takes way longer to change than we think. It's, like we think, oh, 21 days, a few weeks, like they should get it. The behavior is often simple. There's very rarely, sometimes that you might have communicated way too complexly, but most people are like, here's step one, here's step two. The behavior change isn't hard. And yet somehow creating a new routine, that's the hard part. And we talked a lot about, fear and that it's painful and we're losing that control, or what if people don't like me, or what if I fail or disappoint somebody? Like all that's kind of embedded in any kind of change. And that's really what you're supporting people through. It's not them learning the activity. It's them dealing with the emotional turmoil that happens when we're trying to change and we struggle. because there's always a struggle, even for simple changes. And for more complex changes, the more we struggle. So that's the starting place. You want to make sure those things are in place for any kind of change. Are you imagining the future? Are you creating a positive association, focusing on progress? And are you giving yourself the grace to do this long enough? But if you're doing all those things and you're still struggling, that's when you get to the next level. So this is the strategy number 4 is actually looking for a commitment conflict. There's a wonderful book on this you might enjoy called Immunity to Change. Immunity to Change. So people like me who do the same similar work wrote this wonderful book about that. And what they discovered, which makes perfect sense, is that oftentimes when we struggle with the behavior, the reason why we struggle is because we have another commitment that mentally we believe is more important or will be damaged if we do this other thing. And most of the time that relationship is hidden from our view. So you can call them hidden conflicts.
Like if I choose sleep over getting up early to exercise?
Yes, absolutely. It's a great example. So it's the next, yeah. So ultimately all behavior makes sense. So you're getting a benefit. So we don't do things like humans don't do things that don't have a benefit. It seems like we do, like we sabotage ourselves. Like that's just a natural thing that happens. People, like I'm self-sabotaging all the time. So it looks like I'm hurting myself, but there's actually something you're getting from that. And when you make that what's hidden visible, it gives you power. A really great example is oftentimes parents will subjugate their needs for self-care and having a good life and put their kids first. Clearly something that if you say to a parent, stop putting your kids first, they're going to go like, no way, I'm not doing that. I've often done this workshop for moms or for parents. And when you look at it and you look at the benefit or the cost of that, oftentimes the cost is, well, you're more irritable. You might damage your health. You're giving an example, teaching an example to your daughters and your sons about what people are supposed to do, what parents are supposed to do. And so they will copy that down the road. And when you're present to you not taking care of yourself actually is counter to your commitment to put your kids first, in the painful moment where you have to choose self-care over your crying child who wants you and doesn't want you to leave for their workout, you can have that understanding that by choosing self-care, you're actually choosing them. Because in that moment, all you want to do is make them not cry, make them take care of themselves. Can anybody relate to that? I can relate to that. Yeah. So when you look at that behavior, it makes perfect sense. Of course, you're going to not do self-care. You're putting your kids first. Like what parent, not every parent does that, but most parents, that's how they do it. So let's go through, I'd like you to invite you for your own personal self. We're going to go through how do you find these hidden commitments? Whoops. So I want you to look at like what gets in the way. What are you doing instead? I have a commitment to be very productive, and I also love sports. So one of the things that gets in the way for me is watching hockey or football, sometimes soccer if I have to. And I get something from that. Now, spending time watching TV when I could be getting, projects around the house done or exercising or spending time with my kids or spending time with my wife. I mean, that seems really counterintuitive. Like I can really feel guilty for doing that. So what am I getting from watching TV? So that's one of the things. So really, one of my commitments is watching sports. And I have to kind of embrace that. Like that is one of my commitments because it fulfills another commitment that's also important to me. We'll get to that in a sec. So what are you doing instead? Anybody can anybody willing to share like one of the things that they're working on or the change that they're talking about now?
I'm trying to do morning workouts.
Morning workouts. Beautiful. And
But
so then
many
what? And
times
so
I
you
choose
sleep.
sleep.
Right, yeah. Oh, totally. And sleep's kind of important, right?
Mhm.
Um, it's also really nice if people are on camera as well for this because ultimately this discussion is it's nice when we can see. So I recognize that you're all at work and you might be doing this on the side. So I don't want to. It's not a requirement. Um, but the more that I see you, the more I feel like okay, we're engaged in a conversation. Anybody else want to share what they're working on?
I'm working on not watching as much TV.
I know that one.
So that's a hard one. So it requires that I kind of change my routine because
Mm.
there's a certain routine that you do when you get home and you
Oh
do
yeah.
this and do that and do that, and then you sit down and watch TV. Um, that, yeah, it requires a change in routine to do that. And of course, routine is habit and hard to do. So that's what I'm working on.
It's really good. In the last change workshop, thank you, Dolores. It's really helpful to talk about that stuff. Now, one of the things that's really hard for our brains to do is do a not that. Like, I want to stop doing something. I'm going to not do TV. It's way easier to move towards something. Like, we can choose to do something. It's really hard to choose a not that. Our subconscious mind often works in images. And so when we say, I don't want to watch TV, what our mind pictures is watching TV. And so it's like harder. So I would invite you, Dolores, to think about what do you want? What would you do instead? And the other thing I talked about in the last workshop, which might be helpful here, is the anatomy of habit is cue, routine, reward. So for Dolores and watching TV, I get home, I have dinner, I do those things, and then okay, now it's 7 o'clock. There's a certain time, there's a cue in your body. The couch is right there, it's so comfortable. And then you see the couch, you sit down at the couch. Now the routine is TV. And then that TV watching TV gives you a reward. Now it's to change the cue is very hard because that's programmed in. But if you can become aware of the cue and choose a different routine that is more aligned with something you want to create in your life, like going for a walk, hanging out with friends, exercising, and gives a similar reward to the TV, that's one of the best ways to change your routine. Cue, different routine, same or very similar reward. That's one of the easiest ways to change a habit. Um, okay, so if we look at this, like there's the benefit. What is the benefit that you're getting by watching TV or by sleeping? So what is the benefit that you're getting? And we want to kind of go a little bit deeper. What's the next one here? Yeah. So for me, watching sports, it is kind of just a relaxation. It feels like my time. And that's important. And there's a commitment there, which I think that is kind of clear. So the next thing is what's the commitment behind the behavior? So there's the benefit, it's comfortable. So in our lives, there's like the physical comfort. Like we get to feel physically better. Behaviors like resting, eating good food, sweet. There's like that instant physical reward. And then there's kind of like a mental reward as well. And that mental reward points towards something different. And, for myself, one of the reasons why I watch TV is I really am committed to feeling like I'm living the good life. And somehow, like being able to watch what I want and do what I want, like have the freedom to do what I want when I want to do it and not be shackled. Like that, I've got those two things kind of locked in. Now, when I really examine watching sports and what is really a good life or what I'm really committed to, health, family, they don't really line up. But in the moment, I'm like, okay, so a certain amount of sports, absolutely. A certain amount of time, there's like, I will do that and I'm choosing that. And I can say, yeah, no, I enjoy that. It's an activity for me. But when it goes to the when I'm not doing the other things, that's when it becomes detrimental to what else I'm committed to. So can anybody
Arnold,
say, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to ask if we could turn it around into sort of like a change in process or systems.
Very good. So this is so the next slide is actually discovering their hidden commitments. So when this is the first part is here with making it personal, and then we're going to talk about how do you see that in others. So the idea is that first we're going to kind of see how that works for us and then be able to look at that. But from a process perspective, from a people changing perspective, people might be committed to feeling not dominated, to feeling, one of the great needs of people is autonomy, for example. So their commitment to autonomy might be impacting their desire to change, but that they might not be present to that. That might be commitment that's hidden. So we're going to talk about that again on the next slide. I'm just going to shift my camera for a second because I've gone all blurry. I'm speaking from other dimensions, so just one sec here. Oh, no, that's not it. This one.
You look fine, Arnold.
Oh, I do? Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's just me. There we go. Now, it's really important to understand the cost. So if we just want to talk about like the behavior, so Karen, what do you get from sleeping instead of working out?
More rest.
More rest. And why is that important?
So that I have more energy during the day.
For
Although
what?
although working out, I think is supposed to give you even more energy than that.
Yes, absolutely. Well, this is one of the contradictions, right? But it feels like if I sleep more, I'll have more energy. So why do you need more energy? Thank you
to
for
work and do other
yeah,
things in my life.
yeah, to work. So when we're looking right at the decision point of choosing sleeping in versus working out, so you have more energy and then to work and to do other things. So work was the first thing you said. And I suspect as the CEO of a company, like letting people down or ensuring you're a good leader is a real high priority for you. Would you agree?
For sure.
And so in that moment when you're choosing to sleep in, one of the ways that our brain says, oh, it's because it will ensure that I have the rest I need to show up and have the energy and be the leader I want to be. And now, clearly, that's an important commitment. And that is in contradiction to working out. So, working out, what do you get from working out? Why do you want to work out?
Stay fit.
Yeah. Anything else?
Strong. Strength. More energy.
Yeah. Health, right? Like ultimately.
Yeah, health.
So when you see that, so you have a commitment to being a great leader, and you have a commitment to your health. And what it might be is that your commitment to being a great leader is more important, has a higher mental priority for you than your health. Now, in the rational mind, now I'm not saying that in the rational, when you're thinking about that concern, you go, oh yeah, that's clearly that, but it just feels that way when you're in that moment of making that decision. Again, the behavior, the mechanism behind the behavior is hidden from your view. Now, if I said, Karen, what's more important to you, being healthy or being a good leader? You're going to go, well, clearly you don't have your health, you don't have anything. And yet we look at our lives and we consistently will make decisions that are not aligned with that, are not aligned with what we know or what we say is most important to us. And hopefully, Karen, I'm not putting you on the spot here too much, because it's a universal thing that people do, and I really appreciate you being willing to share your own personal experience, because it really adds value for everyone. Can everybody just acknowledge that? Just say like this, that Karen's willingness to chat just is really helping to clarify, just so I know that people are still with me. Thank you.
Now
Thank
all
you,
my
Laura.
clients are going to hold me accountable every time they talk to me. They'll
That's
be
right.
like,
Did
have
you
you
work
been
out
doing
today,
your
Karen?
early morning workouts?
That's very good. Now, what is the cost to you for not working out?
Not being healthy,
Yeah. Anything else?
feeling pain, soreness, just from
Yeah.
like not exercising and being strong, like
Mhm.
strengthening
Yeah, like
muscles.
you sit in a chair all day and you feel
Exactly.
like, oh man,
Stiff.
like my back,
Yeah.
and so more
Yeah.
pain.
Yeah.
And when you choose sleep over working out, is there anything like mental anguish that happens, or are you pretty good at forgiving yourself?
Mm, probably a bit of like guilt, like, I should have woken up early and worked out so that I can feel better and have more energy through the day.
Yeah. So that's kind of the typical process. So we should on ourselves. Why didn't I do that? So it robs us of mental energy. We don't feel as good about, but when you do work out, how do you feel?
Good.
Like that, make that choice. And it's beyond, but here's what's important. It's beyond just the exercise, because exercise will intrinsically make you feel good, but there's also, you feel powerful. It's an energizing decision. When you can have a victory over your default settings, over your habits, over that pull, you instantly give yourself more energy and you feel more powerful. Now, it's helpful to understand the cost. Like if you can really see that working out is directly linked to you being a great leader, and you can mentally make that connection, then it may help you in that decision moment.
So can I ask a question, Arnold?
Hmm.
So, because you talked about positive association and it's the craving for a reward and not the repetition.
Yeah.
So like, let's say I have an employee on the team and we're going through a system software upgrade, ERP upgrade, and this person is resistant to how it's going to impact him or
Mhm.
her in their role because
Yeah.
the way that they do their work is going to be completely different.
Yeah.
So, how do you, or what are some examples of a reward or a positive association for that person?
Well, and it's going to be different for each person. One of
Mhm.
the things that's really important to understand is like what's important. What do people value? Do they value autonomy? Do they value, making people like them? Do they value looking good? Do they value, like, what is it that's going to really have them be excited? Do they value more money? Do they value more flexibility? Like, each person has a different thing that's really going to make the biggest difference. But oftentimes they're also not present to the cost. Like, them not doing it is going to be, you know, painful. They're going to have more conversations with you. There's going to be cause friction. It may bring the whole team down, and it creates, you know, like there's a whole thing that happens. But what they're focused on is the short-term pain. That's why telling the whole story is important. You know, getting to them to the other side of that and having a vision of the future that they care about. So then, you know, like looking at how does if we find out what they're committed to, so this is kind of what I said to Karen, is if you can find out what they're committed to and tie this change to their commitment. Now, I know you're committed to being successful in your career. I know that you're committed to being a great team member. I know that you're committed to, and if we can get through this, then we get to fulfill that commitment and helping them to see that. So how is the cost not fulfilling that commitment? Because it's really easy just to have people just be stuck in the pain. Want to jump to the next level, basically, you know, then apply this to someone you know is struggling and just think about like, what is their hidden commitment? What are they afraid of? You know, in the last session, we talked about kind of some of the fears that people have that nobody really admits to. Like, I want to be liked. That's one of my needs, is I like it when people like me. And when I really analyze all of my greatest virtues, I can see that most of them are just designed to have people like me. Why did I learn how to sing? Why did I learn how to tell jokes? Why do I dress the way I dress? It's also people will like me. That's a need that I have. So if I don't do those things, I'm afraid I'm not going to be liked. Now, it's okay to do those things and choose to do those things, but when you understand the fear behind the behavior, you're able to address it. Because, you know, they're committed to being liked. They're committed to looking good. They're committed to not failing. These are all kind of needs that people have, but we don't really talk about them. So what are they afraid of? What is the benefit they're getting? Like, part of that happens is like, okay, you can't make me. Right? People don't want to resist being dominated. And so, you know, if you're a parent, you can observe that with you know, younger siblings, how they rail against you can't make me. They feel like the loss of freedom. And so oftentimes that's part of it. And understanding that loss, like that fear of being dominated, that resist. Now, people aren't going to say, I don't want you to dominate me. That's not the way people operate, especially in a work environment. There'll be lots of other reasons why that is. And that may or may not be the thing. But if, you know, one of the things I talk about is when you're giving feedback, if they feel like you're beside them instead of across from them, oftentimes this feeling of being dominated will go away. You know, like the first strategy of giving support long enough, like, we're in this change together. How can I support you to be successful? How can you give them that autonomy back? So if you can find that piece and tie that change to what they're committed to, it is very helpful. Now, that requires a level of listening that kind of needs all your attention. Now, everybody can do this, where you can understand people's intentions and feelings. Like, everybody has innately that ability, but it requires paying attention to it. And the cues are subtle. And if you have a lot of chatter in your mind, it's really hard to hear that from others. But when you can be fully present with another person, that's how humans understand fear. Like, if you're in the jungle or walking down a dark alley, you can sense danger, where that's part of our you know, biology. And that sense allows you to understand what's happening in another person. And that level of skill enables you to see some of these things. Helping them see the cost of resistance so that they might not be present to that. And so, like with Karen, if we help her to see the cost of like loss of energy, guilt, that also can help to see, oh yeah, I don't want that pain. I want this feeling. Okay. Look at me go here. I always have lots to say. We have 13 minutes left. So does anybody have any questions about what we just talked about? Or we can talk about it at the end. So uncovering your hidden commitments can be very helpful, and especially the commitment conflict to supporting change. Okay. Strategy 2 is create a different relationship with pain. Now, clearly, pain is something that we naturally avoid. If you put your hand on a hot stove, the instinct isn't, oh, yeah, I'm going to keep my hand there. It's instantly to pull back. Now, that's for physical pain, but it's the same for mental pain. And different people have different relationships to pain. So oftentimes when people are struggling, it's because they haven't created the relationship to pain, which is pain is necessary for growth. And you know that in exercise, the Navy SEALs say that pain is weakness leaving the body. Not that I want you to be Navy SEALs, but if you understand that your relationship, now some people don't have that relationship to pain. Their entire life is about avoiding pain. And when you want them to change, they have to go through something painful. They have to do that. And so helping them to understand and impact that is tricky. It is possible. And it's not directly saying, hey, I'm going to heal your pain, but it's just understanding that process. Okay, so first of all, pain is only energy moving. In the universe, it has to be energy. And when you look at the anatomy of an atom, there's a proton, a neutron, and an electron of various amounts. The electron flies around in an energy field. That energy field is 10,000 times bigger than the proton and neutron. So that means that the entire universe is made up of 99.999% energy. That's not the way we relate to the world. Now, we're not going to go too far down the theory of that, but understand the universe is all energy. And so pain can only ever be energy moving. And phrasing it like that can be helpful. Now, psychological pain is actually the fear of re-experiencing something that happened in the past. Our brain says, this happened, it was painful, I don't want that to happen again. And that memory is energetically stuck. So again, the entire universe is energy. So in your mind, you have an energy pattern, which is a memory that says this event causes pain. And we resist that. In life, you kind of have two choices. You either deal with the pain from your past, or you spend the rest of your life trying to avoid it. Now, this is pretty, hopefully Karen's not too worried about this, but ultimately, this is what it takes to take lasting change. You need to be able to deal with your pain. This is a broader topic for life, but you have to understand that this is the process of what's required to truly have your behavior change. So nothing wrong with avoiding pain. Clearly, that's important. And when you have a memory of pain, it creates a limit on what's possible for you and your life. And our minds think, I'm not ever experiencing that pain again. If you had the experience of doing public speaking as a kid and got embarrassed, you're like, I'm never doing that again. And anytime you're now in a position where I might have to do public speaking, man, that fear comes up. And our minds think, I can't deal with that. Like, that's too painful. I'm not dealing with that. And so then we don't do it. So this process of dealing with the pain is you actually need to be willing to experience that pain in order to expand your comfort zone, which is what we're talking about next. So the trauma warning here is just simply, if you have it that this pain is too much, then you want to get support around that. So we want to start small, but there is pain that we experience and our mind says, I can't be with that. And so if you haven't done a good, or not a good, if you haven't changed your relationship to that pain, I'm not suggesting that you really look something, like, don't start with the biggest pain you've ever felt. We want to start small. So just know that this is a process that is important to get support in if it feels like it's too much. So that being said, the way to expand your comfort zone. So comfort zone is, this is what I'm comfortable with. And if you want to have less limits in your life, is you got to find the edge of what you're comfortable with and go beyond that. And doing that will cause pain and discomfort. Discomfort, the definition is a little painful. So in life, we either resist or we cling. So we cling to the things we want or resist the things we don't want. And each of those things creates limits for us. Now, clearly we want things that we want and we don't want, but it's possible to have a life where you don't resist. The way we're designed as humans is that we go through life and we experience everything without any kind of resistance. Just life flows through you. And when you do that, you have a wonderful experience of life. But as humans, the anatomy of how we work is we create these memories of pain, and then it creates resistance to events in life. So from a perspective of implementing software, you have to understand that people are going to have like fears, like that they're going to resist. And maybe it was they tried to do a change in the past and they struggled, and so now they're afraid of change in general. And helping them through that's really important. The process for you personally is to stop resisting, to observe your thoughts and feelings. Now I'm realizing that this is another workshop, so I'm just going to go a little quickly here and talk about these points and then get into like how you can help others. But it really is just a process of allowing whatever is there to pass through you and just experience it. I really suggest where you practice is with small things like being stuck in traffic, being late, someone's tone. Those are all things that are going to create a bit of pain. Like, life shouldn't be that way. And when you can allow people or allow life to be that way, there's going to be a little moment of pain where you have to just accept that and let it pass through you. And in that moment, you've expanded your comfort zone. So when we're talking about helping others with their comfort zone, really look for what they're saying. Every word we speak is an act of creation. So words are concepts made up of instances. So if I say, I'm overwhelmed, what happens is in that mind, the understanding of overwhelm is any time in my life where I've felt overwhelmed, every instance is wrapped up in the concept of overwhelmed. And as soon as I say that, as soon as a person says that, you create overwhelm for you and the people listening. So when I talk about shifting how people are viewing things as a leader, it's important to change a person's view of the future. This is part of that too. Helping them get past that so that they're not living in that moment. And overwhelmed is a big concept. And the more that you can make it smaller, like what specifically is overwhelming you, the instances of that become less. I'm struggling with something specific. So the difference between I'm angry and I'm disappointed that we're late. There's a very different circumstance there. Maybe not a great example. So the declarations, helping people with those declarations and understanding that what they're saying is creating their experience. And notice, like, what is the pain behind the pain? So I thank you for your generosity and your time today. The process for helping people expand their comfort zone is to just really understand that they're going through a difficult time with pain. And when you can see that for yourself, you can embrace compassion, look at baby steps, express your confidence in them, describe a future where they're successful, be encouraging by tying past behaviors to future success. And those things can help people experience the pain without, or have the courage to go through that pain. So the 5 strategies, which we've kind of talked about, are tell the whole story, make sure you're not sugarcoating anything, otherwise they won't trust you when they say it's going to get results. Create a positive association with change. Support the people long enough so the change is successful. If there's struggle, discover a commitment conflict. Are they worried about failing? Are they worried about looking bad? Are they worried about letting people down? And then now it's pretty advanced to have people have a new relationship to pain. But ultimately, it's about helping them believe that they can get through this pain through support, compassion, and understanding, instead of impatience or upset. And when you can see people are just struggling with the pain of the change instead of the change itself, it gives you some support in some understanding of how to impact that. That is 11:29. So not a lot of time for discussion. I was all like, oh, we're going to have way more time. There's only 2 strategies this time. Not quite.
Thanks, Arnold.
Yeah.
So let's open up the floor. Does anyone have questions for Arnold about these 5 strategies that he's walked us through? Feel free to unmute if you would like to ask a question or type something in the chat.
I don't really have a question, but I haven't, I guess, observe what I've observed in this one that caught my attention is that pain is necessary for growth. Mm. And I think if you think of that, then it automatically comes that is it worth the pain? Mm. So, right, you got to consider that. If you want to make that change, is it worth the pain to you? So that was just what I observed in this that caught my attention.
Yeah, very good. And, you know, that strategy of just understanding and looking and having been present to the results gets you past the pain. And we often think that the pain is going to last forever. And so we don't want to experience it all. But on the other side of pain, if you really like just not resist it, is actually freedom. And that's when your comfort zone is expanded. And it's not expanded for that moment, it's expanded for the rest of your life. You know, people who are scared of public speaking and then they get a job where they have to do public speaking all the time, after a while, like, there is no fear of public speaking. It's not like I have to overcome it every time. It's like it's just gone. So that's the benefit of being able to understand that pain, is you get freedom after that. Thank you, Dolores, for it's absolutely what is the choice. And when you're looking at from a workplace perspective, that is what the choice feels like for a lot of people. Like, do I want to experience this pain? Is it worth it? And if they don't feel like it's worth it, it's really hard for them to invest the time and effort to make that change successful.
Okay, I think we're gonna wrap it up, Arnold. I will just say for me, like my one takeaway I thought was really interesting was when you talked about the hidden commitment to autonomy. And so if I think about people resisting change to new processes that they like their autonomy, especially people who may have been working in their role for a long time and are really good at what they do, and all of a sudden they're going to experience some new process change and they lose that autonomy because then they feel like, well, I don't want to ask people for help. Then I feel like I don't know what I'm doing, or it makes me look weak or whatever. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, there's instantly a loss of excellence. I've mastered this,
Right.
and now I need to master something else. And everybody understands that takes time. It takes time to master a new thing.
Mm-hmm.
I made this offer for the last group, and if anybody interested, I think one of the things that often leaders struggle with is how do you give feedback in a way that has people feel energized? Reach out if you're interested in a workshop. Thank you, Karen and Jermaine and Casey, for hosting me and having me. Hopefully everybody got some value from the time they spent today. I know that there was a big concept I got into around dealing with pain that I felt like was not quite fully fleshed out. So if you have any questions about that, by all means, reach out. But hopefully, as Karen said, there was something in here that was a nugget that will make a difference for you. And I appreciate the time that you spent with me today.
Thank you very much, Arnold. And I got some insights out of it. So I hope all of you did as well. And have a great rest of your day and week.
See you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.